Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could just remain standing for just a moment, we'll have a moment of silence. We just recently lost a lady by the name of Miss Mary Fisher. She was our gym teacher at the high school for many years, served on many boards, and while we're at it, we better keep the people of Florida in our prayers. Thank you very much. Meeting announcement. Time is always allotted at the end of each meeting for the commissioners to receive comments from the public. Tonight is a special night. We have with us a very special guest, Miss Edna Cox, who turned 105 years old today. I'm not sure about anybody else. I'm not sure I knew anybody else at 105 years old, to be honest with you. You certainly have seen a lot in your time, and that's certainly a long time to be around. And you're doing such a great job. You look fabulous. We have a proclamation amongst other things, and I'd like to read. It says, Kent County, Maryland proclamation honoring and celebrating the 105th birthday of Edna D. Cox. It says, whereas Edna D. Raisin was born on October the 8th, 1919. She was raised on a farm in Wharton and lived there until she married Ralph S. Cox on May 31st, 1938. Edna and Ralph were married for 70 years until Ralph passed away on October the 5th, 2008. Edna has been blessed with 3 children, 10 grandchildren, 18 great-grandchildren, and 18 great-great-grandchildren. And whereas Miss Edna worked at a sewing factory until retiring in 1983. She then went back to work at Schlegel's until retiring again at the age of 80. And whereas Miss Edna is an avid camper who has camped from Niagara Falls to Florida. At 91, she took a cruise to Alaska and experienced her first airplane ride. She flew again at 103 to visit her grandson and great-granddaughters. Miss Edna drove her car until she turned 100 and continues to play the organ and crochet blankets and stuffed animals for her family. And whereas, even at 105, Miss Edna still goes to the Amy Lynn Ferris Adult Activity Center and is a Rock Hall American Legion Auxiliary member. She enjoys spending time with her friends, driving around the county, having lunch anywhere, and reminiscing about her childhood. She's the last living graduate of her class at Chestertown High School in 1936, making her the oldest living alumni of that school. Many friends, family, and the community treasure and love her. Now therefore, we, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, extend their best wishes and congratulations to Edna D. Cox on her 105th birthday, and hereby declare October the 8th, 2024 as Edna D. Cox Day in Kent County. And that is obviously signed by the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, John F. Price, Member, dated October the 8th, 2024. And John, you got,
So most of you here know that I served the county for a lot of years as sheriff. And we were involved, the sheriff's office, in a lot of senior programs throughout the county.
Yes.
And Ms. Edna and Mr. Ralph were essential parts of that. And this is just a little token of my appreciation, the county's appreciation, and our gratitude for all the service and all the hard work that you've done for the people of Kent County. And just happy birthday.
and on behalf of the citizens of Kent County, it's our privilege and pleasure to present you with this proclamation.
Thank you. This is an honor to receive this. Quite an honor.
Well, it's an honor to have you with us.
It's nice to meet you.
Now, usually, and we would love to have a picture. Now, it depends on how, we usually take a picture in front of this quilt. We could, with the family, we could all come up here if we're able to do it, however you all want to do it, but we'd love to, you can have just her or all the family, just her. Is that what you want to do? It's up to you all.
What do you want?
How would you like to do it?
Whatever suits them.
I think that should go up there with her. I think that should go
Beautiful
up
quilt.
there.
Yeah.
I just love it.
We
She
could,
was always very easy to work with.
well, you,
What if they need it found?
Yeah, just Uncle Doug and
Yeah.
whatever, fine. Because of mine.
Okay, what you got?
Right here.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
get that, Butch, get that.
That's what I was thinking too, the flowers should be in there, they're gorgeous. Oh, I was
You
thinking
know
the
what, we can
flowers.
put the flowers on
Somebody
the
put all the
flowers.
flowers. Oh my gosh.
Mom, Carol, get up there. Yes, because I'll put this up there, get up there, get up there.
You go.
Oh, that's good.
All right, smile.
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Ms. Ed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks for
Thank
coming,
you all.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
About that. Now, our first appointment is, we're pleased to have with us our Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Paul Wedefield. I guess I got that right then,
Yes,
sir? Okay. Welcome to Kent County.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you and your entourage here, as we do but most every year, but I turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. Again, Paul Wiedefeld, Secretary of Transportation for the record. I'm glad to be here to talk about our fiscal year 25 through 30 capital program, commonly called the CTP. I also want to take the time to thank you for visiting with us at Mako. I know that it's a great opportunity for us to share some ideas and some of the concerns you have. I know we did follow up on one of them on a truck study for you, and I know they're getting the information back to you. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that we do listen, we do follow up on that. I'll keep my opening comments brief, focusing on the updated department's finances, since it drives investment levels for projects in Kent County and around the state. I will then turn the briefing over to different representatives from the MODs to talk about their specific issues in the county here at Kent. And of course, we'll take questions at the end. So regarding the MDOT's finances, as you may recall, last year, we had significant financial issues with almost a $3.3 billion hole in the capital program. There were two actions were taken during the last legislative session. One was the use of rainy day funds, a one-time for 1 year, to deal with some of the issues, and the legislature raised roughly about $1.8 billion in additional revenue to basically reduce the cuts that needed to be made to keep a balanced budget. One of the things that did occur with with those efforts was to restore the highway user revenue funds for the county, which are very important for the county and municipalities across the state, and also local operated transit system. Turning now to this year's draft CTP. The department continues, obviously, to face some significant budgetary challenges, primarily because of the slow economic growth in general. The increasing rising cost of labor and materials continues to outpace our revenues, and our revenues not coming in as high as we thought they would in terms of our projections over the 6 years. For example, the motor fuel tax revenues, which is the Transportation Trust Fund's largest source of funds, has come in a projected $350 million lower than we anticipated. At the same time, our operating costs have increased $300 million when you project this out over the program period. As a result of these financial pressures, the department is making strategic investments with our limited resources to further enhance safety of our transport system, maintain operations, and to preserve as much of the system as we can. Getting into the details, the draft CTP is balanced as required by state law and totals approximately $18.9 billion. A lot of dollars. We still do a lot of work across the state, but not as much as we feel that we need to, as much as people are asking us to do. However, because of these fiscal constraints, we had to make tough decisions and reductions to live within our means. That resulted in a reduction of $1.3 billion compared to last year's program. Even with these reductions, MDOT is committed to strategically using available resources to advance state priorities. The number one priority for us is safety. Safety of all the individuals that use the system, not only operators of vehicles, but also people that walk, people that bike, and clearly for anyone that works in our system. Excuse me. For example, this summer I did sign and updated a department-wide complete streets policy. The updated policy will support Maryland's Vision Zero goal to rapidly reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries to zero by 2030. I'm pleased to announce that the Maryland Transit Administration recently completed a safety rail project along sections of Chestertown Line in Morton. The completed project addressed safety concerns and extended freight lines' life cycle to support continued safe operations. In addition to our focus on safety, the department will continue to make strategic investments that support Maryland's foundation and our economy. A number of those, for instance, are the Howard Street Tunnel in Baltimore, which allows double stacking for the Port of Baltimore, which supports a lot of economic growth throughout the state, as we've seen with the collapse of the bridge, actually throughout the nation in what we do there at the Port of Baltimore. The AB connector at BWI Thurgood Marshall, which is basically supports the growth of Southwest Airlines at the airport. The Frederick Douglass Tunnel, which is basically the northeast corridor of the Amtrak, which then supports the MARC system between Baltimore, Washington, and even to points further north and to the south. And then advancing public infrastructure work to support the FBI headquarters relocating to Maryland in Greenbelt, a very important win for the state of Maryland. So with that, that concludes my opening remarks. I'll now have different administrators talk about some of the issues here in Kent County, starting with Will Pines from the State Highway Administration.
Mr. Secretary, before we move on, I'd be remiss, I want to make everybody aware we have our entire 36th district delegation with us. Senator Steve Hershey and Delegate Jay Jacobs, Steve Ahrens, and Delegate Jeff Grace. So welcome, gentlemen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We've enjoyed the whole day with them.
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good evening, everyone. My name is Will Pines, and I'm the State Highway Administrator. And I also want to take a moment to introduce SHA's District Engineer for District 2, Ken Fenner. Wave, Kenny. We thank him for all the great work that he and his team do to help support your local needs and also with constituent services. Now, at SHA, we understand the fiscal challenges that Maryland is facing. However, I want to assure you of two things. First, SHA will continue to do big things moving forward with multimodal projects that improve safety, accessibility, mobility, and equity. Second, safety will always be our top priority. This means building and maintaining a system that supports pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, all users, including our highway workers. On the point of safety, one of my first asks of the team when I came on the job last year was to enhance our crosswalks statewide. In fiscal year 2024, we upgraded 1,009 crosswalks at 462 intersections across the state. In Kent County, we upgraded 28 crosswalks at 15 intersections. Now, I'd like to highlight a few local SHA projects and thank the county for its support and partnership on these. We're making progress on the $12.3 million project to replace the US 301 bridge over the Chester River. We expect to set the main beams this fall, and we're working toward completion next summer. I want to thank everyone for their patience during this critical project. We feel the contraflow that's been in place is working well and maintaining the one lane in each direction across the southbound span. We're continuing to work on Chestertown pedestrian improvements with the feedback of the community and local officials. In 2023, we added a rapid flashing beacon to improve driver awareness of a trail crossing at Maryland 291. And early next year, we'll install additional beacons on Maryland 213 at Queen Street and Kent Street to help alert motorists to pedestrians at those crossing locations. And we're moving forward with design of auxiliary lanes at US 301 Railroad Crossing south of Maryland 313. These lanes will improve safety by removing vehicles required to stop at crossings like hazmat carriers and school buses from the main travel lanes. Finally, I'm pleased to announce a grant of $65,440 from the Recreational Trails Program for the Bayside Boulevard Footbridge Restoration Project in Betterton. Again, while we must live within our budget, we're still doing big things to advance important projects and programs in the county. And with that, I want to thank you for your time this evening, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Bruce Gardner, or possibly Melissa, okay, with the Maryland Transportation.
Good evening. For the record, Bruce Gardner, Executive Director of the Maryland Transportation Authority. I'm here to talk to you about two big projects for the Chesapeake Bay Bridge this evening, one a planning study and one a construction project. So on the Chesapeake Bay Crossing study, we are in the midst of our Tier 2 study, $28 million investment in looking at the specific corridor where the existing bay bridges are, and for alternative crossing at that location. It's a 22-mile stretch between the Severn River Bridge and the US 50-301 split. We've made a lot of progress over the last year. We expect to hold in-person and virtual public open houses in early December to explain the alternatives that we think should be retained for detailed study. So those will be in the early part of December, and we look forward to getting that information out to you on the specific dates in the near future. The conclusion of that Tier 2 study is expected for late 2026. So although we are hoping to have those open houses before this event, we think that with the December timeframe, we'll still be able to meet that schedule. Next, to talk about the major construction that's ongoing on the Bay Bridge. So we are doing the eastbound Bay Bridge deck replacement project, $140 million in this phase. We started that in April, and we've replaced 43 of those large deck panels on the Bay Bridge out of 156 in this phase of the project. We anticipate completion of that package one of those 156 panels in the spring of 2025. The next group will start right after that and expected to wrap up in the fall of 2026. So that's all I have this evening. I'll just be around, and I'll turn it over now to Travis at the MTA.
Thank you, Bruce, and good evening, everyone. I'm Travis Johnston, Local Transit Support Director at the Maryland Transit Administration. A safe, reliable, and rider-focused public transit system remains key to growing and strengthening our region. And as you know, locally operated transit systems are critical partners in providing transit throughout the state. Overall, we invest in transit in Kent County by providing nearly $1 million in operating and capital grants to support local transit operations provided by Delmarva Community Transit in conjunction with Caroline and Talbot counties. In FY25, these grants will provide funding for continued preventative maintenance and one new small bus. Short and sweet. With that, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and now I'll turn it over to Leslie from MVA.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Leslie Dews, Deputy Administrator over at the MVA. Customer satisfaction has always been the cornerstone at the MVA, and as of last month, I'm happy to report that the agency's overall satisfaction rate was 99.5%. By prioritizing efficiency and accessibility, in fiscal year 2024, the MVA's average wait time was just 5 minutes, and that's despite completing more than 6.7 more transactions than the previous fiscal year. To expand our outreach into local communities, the bus is often in Chestertown, and to provide services and outreach to customers, they conducted over 540 transactions in fiscal 2024. The MVA and its partners remain committed to developing solutions to save lives on our roadways and to reach our goal of 0 fatalities, and this is the only acceptable number. Last year, 1 person lost their life in Kent County, and so far this year, there have been 0 fatalities. Last month, the Governor Moore announced more than $354,000 in highway safety grants to law enforcement agencies and organizations in Kent County, including the Sheriff's Office, Chestertown Police Department, and Washington College. The grants will support the work of officers dedicated to eliminating impaired and distracted driving crashes and roadway deaths along with speed enforcements. In closing, I'd like to thank the MVA employees because without their hard work and dedication, we couldn't do what we do every day. And so I thank you for your attention, and now I'll turn it over to Ashish at MAA.
Thank you, Leslie. Commissioners, great evening to you. Great to be with you again this evening. In the past, we've spoken to you on our aviation safety program, a lot of the programs that we've done with safety improvements. I want to take some time today and share with you our economic value, our economic impacts that our airports contribute to the state of Maryland, certainly locally, regionally, and then, of course, globally. So airports in general, they provide an economic activity in terms of jobs, business revenue, and certainly taxes for our communities. BWI Marshall, our largest airport in the state, provides over $11.3 billion in economic activity to the state. This is direct and indirect impacts. We also contribute over 107,000 jobs in the region and to our state. I also want to share with you an impact for our 34 other public use airports, including our small Massey Aerodrome here. We're contributing with these 34 public use airports over $1.4 billion in economic activity. Again, on airport, off airport impacts, contributing to jobs and other economic values. In terms of jobs, we're contributing over 10,000 jobs statewide from the aviation activity. So in support of all of this economic activity in the aviation sector, we're pleased to support the programs that we have with $3.5 million in safety improvement grants. This will help perform safety improvements towards runways, taxiways, aprons, basically maintaining our airports to a safe standard. So thank you for the opportunity to provide this quick update on aviation. Now it's my pleasure to turn it back over to Secretary Wiedefeld.
Thank you, Ashish. In closing, I'd like to make just talk about our other economic engine, the Port of Baltimore, particularly with all the focus that we've had on it over the last few months with the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. It is rebounding. very nicely right now. Our cruise business is just about back to where it was. Our ships have come back, although the cargo is still not the same level that we were pre the collapse of the bridge yet, just because of the market, how cargoes moves through in effect, the international market in the port business. While we welcome these positive elements, we are, however, still assessing the damage and long-term impacts caused by the port shutdown and the loss of the Key Bridge. The port has joined the state's legal action to seek and hold the Dolly's owners and management accountable for the state's damages. So that is currently a case in court, but we are being very aggressive in making sure we get every penny we can for the damage that was done there. In closing, I just want to reinforce our primary focus is safety, but we can also not ignore the need to preserve the system, particularly the highway and bridge system in counties like Kent County and on the lower and upper eastern shore and other parts of the state. The importance of continuing to resurface some of those roads, because if you don't, they fall behind and you know what happens, right? We spend more money doing it. So that'll be quite a bit of discussion during the upcoming session for me to make that point, to make sure that we have the dollars to do the basics that we need to do. So with that, be glad to take any questions that I can answer or any of the administrators that are here with us tonight.
Anyone have questions?
I don't know about questions, but comments as much as anything. And I think I'm just going to, when we met in August, I kind of hammered you a little bit. And look, I realize that it's, no one wants to be in this position. Unfortunately, this is where we're at, and I'm not blaming, but I think that our constituents, the Kent County residents, and the District 36 residents as a whole, I think that, I've been hearing a lot of interest in these vehicle fees and gas tax monies going towards transportation systems that, which doesn't directly go to the transit system, so to speak, or, the roads, like I think that it was originally intended. So I think that, going to the legislature this year, I mean, I think those funds, and you hit on the deferred maintenance, the longer we let some of these issues, these roads, it's going to cost us more if we don't try to keep up with it. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. So I think that, hopefully the powers that be in Annapolis can understand that. And I was questioned by a constituent about a Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Apparently, there's quite a bit of money that was from the feds that Maryland has gotten, and they seem to think that a lot of that money none of those projects don't seem to think many of those projects have kind of hit the ground here in the state of Maryland, whereas they seem to have been in other states. Kind of that money's flowing through the system already. And I don't think that any of us need to point out the importance of, the money getting to, number one, the roads, but number two, the contractors that supply jobs and, just the whole economic structure of that. I think it's important that we keep these contractors going. I mean, here in Kent County, very selfishly, one of our largest employers is David A. Bramble, and we need them to keep working. It's a lot of jobs they provide all up and down Eastern Shore of Maryland. So I know you've heard it already before, and but I think that it's important that we make sure that the folks in Annapolis, realize how important it is to the economy of the Eastern Shore.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all for coming to you. Yes, and I do want to say, Ken is awesome. I mean, we've had a couple of issues, and I mean, he's very responsive. And, my 2 years of sitting up here, your entire team has been very accessible, and I appreciate that. So I want the public needs to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, you have anything?
I'm good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have Mr. Jacobs raising his hand here, or Delegate Jacobs.
I have a couple questions. If Mr. Gardner could give some examples of what the NEPA study scenarios could be, what they're considering, I think, the people, the citizens of this county would have some interest in what kind of scenarios it could be and that come out of that NEPA study, like, tunnels.
Sure. So at the workshops in December, we'll have several different presentation materials for the citizens to review. And that would be whether types of bridges that we could use to expand capacity across the bay, whether it could be tunnels and what are advantages and disadvantages of tunnels, whether it be a combination of a bridge and tunnel. So it's those types of things, in addition to the number of lanes, the types of public transit and/or bike pedestrian access across the corridor at the existing bay bridges are all alternatives that will be considered in the study, and that's what we're trying to narrow down as to what we would be evaluating further to narrow down a big menu of options into a much smaller, more digestible one to advance, and finally make a decision on an alternative at the end of the 2026 time period. Does that help, sir?
Thank you very much. I thought the citizens would find it helpful.
Thank you.
Understanding what goes into this phase of, need
Certainly.
But if I understood it right now, the location is that set?
It's that corridor on Route 50, 2 miles wide for
Where
the 22 miles.
whatever happens is going to happen in that
There,
location.
yes, that was the previous study that narrowed it down.
And also, thank you very much, sir.
Sure.
Also, I guess Will, Ken, I know you guys are fans of the Ken Fender fan club, right?
Very much so.
I'd like to get that straight here. There, recently, the Route 445 had a resurfacing, and there was a problem with the little concrete bridge up there at Reese's Corner, and they fixed that. They did a great job with 445. I think everybody would agree with that. And recently, there was I guess a culvert collapsed, and there's been a steel plate over that for several months now. I know I've heard from several constituents about how long that's going to be on there, that steel plate on top of the, I guess you would call it the southbound lane. And so hopefully Dan or Will or somebody can answer that.
Kenny can get
Yeah, so we're currently in the process of getting a permit. We have a pipe failure underneath the road. You know as well as I do, that whole area is critical. So anything we do, we have to get an environmental permit to do anything to that at all. Once the permit comes in, we'll get in and replace the pipe and take care of. So it's not going to, hopefully it won't stay there long. The permitting process does take a little bit of time, but we're working to get those in.
Is that an MDE permit or DNR permit?
As long as it's not a state highway permit.
I mean the environmental permit.
Yeah,
Or she'll be here next week.
Thank you. Any other questions of the
No, I think, this is our third CTP meeting today, and they've had enough of us. But they're a great group to work with, I gotta say, communication-wise. The entire group respond very well to all of us in District 36, Senator, all of them.
As you and Albert both pointed out, Mr. Fender is very accessible, and we appreciate we'd have nothing but good words to say about our local district.
He's top notch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Me?
Senator Hershey and the delegation would want to come up.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Kent County again. Thanks for having us.
Look, we got candy corn and receivers. All right, man.
But Jeff was outside talking to the secretary, I think.
got you. Good start.
Welcome, delegates and Sandra. Good to have you, and that was a short and sweet presentation we just heard.
Right. I know it's been a long day for them, but, as you guys know, better than anybody, the forecast is pretty bleak when it comes to that stuff,
It really is, and they've kind of let everybody know that obviously there are revenue issues, and the cost of obviously projects have gone up, but Commissioner, you were exactly right in your questioning. It was, in fact, the first question I asked in Cecil County earlier today was the fact that many people are just getting their registration bills and recognizing that the cost has doubled on them.
Right.
And at the same time, we're hearing that there's not enough money in the Transportation Trust Fund for roads projects. So it is something that we've been very concerned about. Secretary and I both sit on the, they call it the Train Commission, but it's Transportation Revenue and Infrastructure Commission that's designed to really take a look at where we are from a transportation infrastructure, but also where we are from respect to revenue. And there's been a number of different ideas that are being floated around because of just what you talked about. You know, should money that's coming in from registration, titling, fuel tax be going to roads and bridge projects rather than funding operations in the transit side? And so there are some ideas that are out there that other states have done with respect to probably regional taxing authorities that allow funding to be generated from those that use those transit projects more often. And so hopefully we'll maybe get to some conclusion. It's not a favorite concept of those on the other side of the aisle,
Sure it's not.
as you would imagine. But at the same time, I think if we really are getting more and more to where not just new projects, but the maintenance of our current road system, as we, and Delegate Grice did a very good job of, talking about this at the earlier meeting. If we continue to fail to maintain our roads, we simply just cannot get them back. And it will cost, multiple times more money to bring them back if we fail to maintain them. So it's a big issue we're dealing with.
Can I just add one thing too? And I mentioned to the Secretary in Cecil County, what we really have to do is we have to decouple the Transportation Trust Fund, whatever our motorists or revenue that they're generating through those taxes have to stay with road resurfacing, and they have to stay with the roads and bridges. They can't be used anywhere else. And so we've had this conversation with Delegate Corman, who is Delegate Jacobs' chair now, when he was on our committee, that honestly, I would support transit more than I do now if they could have their own dedicated funding source. And it's proportional to the people who actually use it. Fewer than 1% of the people in the Eastern Shore use transit.
Right.
Statewide, it's still fewer than 5% who use transit, but more people in Montgomery and Prince George's and Baltimore City use transit than anywhere else in the state. So if they can find a dedicated funding source where those folks are paying a higher percentage proportionally of the money that goes into that, then that makes sense. And also, too, they have to eliminate this whole idea that fare box recovery. I don't know if you guys know what that is or not. So basically, they don't want the users of the metro to pay for their operating costs. They want it to be a free service that is paid for through general fund tax dollars or through the Transportation Trust Fund. So if that's what they want to do, then they have to tax the general population in Prince George's and Montgomery, and then I'll be all for it. And that's a conversation that we need to have.
Or they give us free gas over here.
Or when these roads crumble, our suspension systems, when they start failing because, all potholes.
A
think something else to note, we had a meeting a few weeks ago with the budget secretary about dollars, just general dollars, and this was a big part of the discussion to talk about the roads. So all four of us, it's heavily on our mind about the roads and the repercussions if you don't maintain what you should maintain. And it's unfortunate we don't have the dollars due. This is probably the thinnest sheet we've ever seen coming up here, and that's not a good sign. That
That's
doesn't mean.
saying something, if it's, because they're never very thick.
I know.
Cecil was a one-pager too now.
So, I mean, that is not a good sign. So, and I think we recognize that, we're working towards that, and, hopefully we can find some resolve for this.
But we appreciate
And I guess
everything you bring it up.
with the climate, with the financial climate that we have found ourselves in, I know this is a dumb thing for me to even bring up, but I don't know how long ago it was, but when we lost our highway user revenue, that was back in the era, that's probably 10 or 12 years ago or something.
I think it was longer.
14, it was about 16 years ago.
Yeah, I think that was, I was thinking 2008, 2009.
And at that time, for a little county like Kent County, that was about a $2.5 million hit to us. And I remember, as I was here at the time, and I remember that year, because we had raised taxes by 5 cents that year to replace it so we could maintain because they took it all and promised us that we would get it back over time when we got straight. We took 2% away from our the pay from our employees. Took 2%, didn't give a break, took 2%, and we promised them that when things got, as soon as we could get our feet back under us, we would give it back to them, and we did. So far, I think we've regained about 15% of what we lost. To a little county like this, that's a big nut to crack, and but I guess I don't hear much talk about it now. I assume it's gone for forever, probably. But
We just had a conversation with Queen Anne's County about this with Mako, and to think that, I think we as a delegation enjoy a great relationship with our counties. We communicate, we talk, and that's something that they don't do necessarily on the other side, because certainly none of us would support taking away highway user dollars, but it got done, and we did it. Our groups are the ones that did it, the Senate and the General Assembly overall. And I think the working relationship has to get better between some of those groups, between the towns, the counties, and whatever, and a delegation, to sit back and say, hey, you know what, we don't want that. We should be communicating that message back and forth to them, so they don't come back here and take our powers away locally. Who's ever on Mako,
But you're right about highway user, but I will say that the counties and the towns are positioned, not in a good way, but they're positioned better than the state. And you were spot on, like our state road, like right now, the amount of money that's coming to District 2, which is Cecil, Kent, Queen Anne's, Caroline, and Talbot County, these roads are gonna crumble in about 5 years, state roads. So the county roads and municipal roads will be better in 5 or 6, 7 years than their state roads will be. It's just because of the numbers that are budgeted for system preservation. So I will say that you guys are positioned better than the state's has positioned us in state highway. I don't know what these guys are going to do. Kenny Fender's, if I were him, I'd retire.
I think that's on the horizon for him from what he said.
Let's hope he doesn't.
Perfect timing, yeah, exactly.
Let's get him some revenue and hope he doesn't.
There you go.
I tell you, that when we got that highway money, back when we were getting our full amount, not one dime of road work in this county come out of the general fund. That highway user revenue paid for the equipment, the employees, and the repairs. It paid it. And then there was some years where we actually carried a couple $100,000 fund balance in that separate fund, that county roads fund. So it was a big deal when we lost it. But we weren't by ourselves. I mean, we found the whole state did it. So, I mean, but some of them don't remember, but I do, because I was here when it happened, and I just keep thinking about it. But anyhow, that's water under the dam. But what else?
Well, we advertised for legislative bond initiatives. to, like last year, we were hoping this would be a public hearing so that not only the commissioners, but also you could hear any of the local initiatives that might be coming forward as an LBI request for this session, and we received 0. So we're not sure if
That's a little easier.
We've received, that's in line with how much money we'll have.
right?
We've
Exactly.
received some, but believe me, we're kind of broadcasting the same message you heard earlier today, that we'll probably maintain that 15 million between the House and Senate, which is 7.5 each, divided by 188.
And let me add one more thing, a little caveat to this too. This will be my 11th session. I think Aaron's just 12th. I don't know, you guys have been a lot more than that, at least
15
years. And at least every year that I've been there, we voted for the budget. And there's this unwritten rule that if you don't vote for the operating budget, that you don't get bond bills. You don't get anything in the capital budget, because we passed the capital budget after the operating budget. That you're not going to get any of your local funding in that. And last year I think it was a struggle for all of us to vote for the budget, because there's a lot of money being spent on things that we just don't agree with. And there's a lot of things that we want to spend money on that's not their leadership's priorities, I don't know where I'm going to be. I can speak for myself. I can't speak for these guys. I don't know where I'm going to be this year. I had a hard time voting for the budget last year. I may have a harder time voting for it this time. That being said, I don't know what the response is going to be from, the budget committees, at least my budget committee. And there's a lot of mutual respect. And hopefully that'll go somewhere, where they'll still fund some of our projects, even despite whether we vote for the budget or not. But this is going to be a tough one to vote for, I'll be honest with you guys, and I don't know what the outcome of that will be.
Well, I can sympathize with your thoughts on that. Yeah, I understand. It's a dual-edged sword there, but you gotta kind of live with yourself and your constituents at some point in time too. So I wish you luck with that. And I wish us all luck. I mean, I know that it's not going to get better anytime, next year.
It's going to be a very difficult session. We had a number of conversations about what we think really, what priorities are going to be, and I think the biggest thing we're going to see is, and I think this is good in some perspective, is you're going to see projects and spending pushed out a few years. So we've talked about Kerwin a number of times on where the state's obligation is there. I think we'll probably see some changes there, that they're simply state doesn't have the money to fund their obligation of that. Transportation projects are getting pushed out. Other policies are going to get pushed a little bit because, I truly believe the governor and at least the Senate president do not want to do, wholesale widespread tax increases. We might see something again like, registration fees or something like that, but I believe that they really want to hold back on doing that, which in order to do that would mean that they're going to have to find some ways to cut spending, and if they do that, in the way that they'll do that is rather than, making, specific advocacy groups unhappy and saying, we're going to cut these, they're going to say, well, we'll push this out for another year, or we'll do this amount and we'll wait, a few years before we do that part of it, that we have, I know that the Environment Secretary is going to be up in this area in the next couple weeks, and when the Climate Solutions Now Act was passed, and they finally got through the Environment Department and looked at it, it was close to $1 billion a year, and simply state doesn't have the money to do that. But the law was passed, and now they're going to have to find out, certain areas that they can fund and try to do, and other areas they're just going to say we won't do it. One of the things that was interesting, the Secretary brought up in the previous earlier today, was we had passed a law that said that MTA Transit Administration had to purchase electric vehicles, electric buses in their new fleet. Anything new had to be electric buses. Well, they just went before the Board of Public Works and said that we can't afford electric buses. So for the state, it's okay when they can't afford something to just say, hey, we can't afford it, so we're not going to do it, and move on. So I think a number of those situations are happening now that people are getting a little more keen to. and saying, well, we're passing policies and the state can't afford it, well, maybe we really can't hold the counties to those same types of standards as well.
Well, I hope so, because to Jeff's point, I can tell you, I mean, there's, in the future, I mean, I can't speak for these guys, but I can say, I mean, if we can't afford it, we can't afford it. And now's certainly not the time to raise taxes on constituents that are struggling as it is. I mean, so, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
ready
so
to.
that's what it seems to be like this year, yeah.
And it's, hadn't got anything to do with transportation, but we're starting to hear, hearing some grumbles about the Kerwin where they're gonna make, I think that will be at least talked about in this legislative session, I assume.
Well, the state can't afford their obligation, so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty clear. So they're gonna have to do something, and we talked earlier, they'll pick different parts of it. They'll say, okay, we can provide this, but they certainly can't do that. And a number of the revenue sources that they thought were going to help Kerwin, one was a digital advertising tax, is still caught up in courts as being unconstitutional. So there's other things that they thought were in place that, I'll be honest, we argued those exact points when these laws were passed, and now they're finding that they're not, coming to fruition. So they've got their own budget and revenue problems as well that they're going to have to deal with.
Well, and it was also passed before COVID, and the economy slowed way down during COVID. So they didn't have the tax revenue they weren't expecting because, as a result of that too. So, and they're just going to have to continue to issue waivers to local government. And this is a message I sent, that we talked about today in Queen Anne's County. Do what you can. And honestly, what I would do is try to keep your message as positive as you can. And there's a lot of things that we're doing. We're thinking outside the box. We're being very creative in how we're implementing Kerwin. One is Pillar One. We have, not in Kent County because you guys have Shore Up, but we're working with our community action agencies to help with Pillar One. We're trying to create a federal state sort of partnership, and you're on the MRDC board, so you know that. And so that's thinking outside the box. That's hopefully we can, and you guys already do 3-year-old pre-K in Kent County, so it's not an issue here. But that's just one example. Another example is with our I think it's Pillar 3, where we have this, 5-county partnership with Community College, where we're doing dual enrollment for our tech ed, on a lot of these different things. So that's going to help with Pillar 3. So we're doing a lot of really positive things that will help the blueprint. But there are certain things we just can't do. We can't fund starting salaries at $60,000 because of compression wages. We just don't have the tax base to do it. We don't have the willingness to be able to cut public safety. We don't have the willingness to cut transportation and all these other priorities that you guys have in order to be able to give these raises. So don't do it. But you tried in other areas and it works. I would have a positive message in those regards, but you made an effort. We've had 3 or 4 years to do this. There's certain things that you just can't do, and then the state's just have to give you a waiver for it until the magic number is FY27, which is 2026, is after our election and then every other legislator's election and the governor's election. That's the first year of any 4-year terms when they usually raise taxes, and that's when they make, wholesale changes to the laws, because people have very short-term memories, and then the next election they'll forget about it. So that's when you're going to start seeing major changes to Kerwin, and then they'll start backing off, I think, on a lot of those things in the 2026 session.
Well, one other, on another different note, last year, our superintendent and we all testified, trying to get to 50%. We're considered a wealthy county, so capital, like a new school, a new middle school, we pay 50% of it. You're talking about an $80 million school, which is not unreasonable. I mean, that's in the 19 to 20,000 people got to pay back $40 million, which we can't do that. Just plain out couldn't do it. So there was an effort, and our superintendent at the time thought she had I don't know who she was talking to, but she felt pretty confident that we were going to get that down, that 50% down to maybe 6 or 8 or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Dr. Lever has some connections with I think that's the IAC. I think that's probably where she was probably thinking. And Dr. Lever is very influential in the school construction process.
So they're going to obviously make a shot at it again this year, at least try it. because the need is certainly not going away. But in this atmosphere, do we even hold out any hope for something like that to take place with the climate that we're in, that we find ourselves in? If we didn't get it last year, and it's certainly the financial climate hasn't gotten better, and it looks like it's getting worse, I guess we can't tell. It's probably too early to tell, but it just doesn't give me personally a whole lot of hope that that would happen this year.
I would have more hope for school construction because that's a bipartisan, that's a priority for just about every legislator in Annapolis. And it is a different pot, well, not really a different pot, well, for operating it is. But for school construction, I would have less hope for bond bills. I would have less hope for anything in the miscellaneous section of the capital budget, which is basically your bond bills that have higher price tags that the legislature, that's our priority.
Right.
Now, those are sort of the pet projects. I would have less confidence in getting those funded, but school construction I do. And you were in that hearing that we had. Honestly, that was probably one of the best hearings of any bill that we heard in our committee last year. I mean, these guys were throwing high five, like our committee members are throwing high fives as I was walking back to the chair because of our panel. We had a very strong panel, very well articulated, and like these guys believed, like they all wanted to fund this school, and we had a great way to do it where it was only going to impact Kent County. And throughout the rest of the session, they were like, so what about your bill? I had other members of the committee, I'm like, Ben Barnes is the one holding this thing up. Like, it's the chair, You don't want to set a precedent, don't want to set a precedent. And I understand that, whenever, you set a precedent, then everybody else is going to say, well, I want you to tweak the law to help me in this way. You know what I mean? So I understand where he's going with that. But I will say that the rest of our committee, they want a middle school in Chestertown. They all do. So I think there is hope. And I don't think that the school construction money is going to go away first. I think that they're going to keep that as probably one of the last cuts that we ever have. So I think the money's going to be there. And the way that bill was written, and we said it in the meeting, that we're not cutting from any specific county or any school system. This is just off the top of everybody. So everybody's sort of sharing in the cost, the whole state's sharing in the cost of the middle school in Chestertown. And so nobody would have really felt the pain by passing this bill. And they all understood that. So I think there is hope.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad I asked the question. I give you the opportunity
Yeah.
because I would have thought just from everything you hear that was probably a fruitless effort we were
No,
getting ready to make.
not at all.
Good.
Absolutely not.
So now is the best time to push for that.
I would
Maybe
we need
not
to put that
5
bill in
years from
again.
now.
We need to put that bill in again. I'll
Yeah,
tell you,
I
the
mean,
committee members love, the
A
committee
better
members
chance
loved
now
it.
than 5 years from now. I mean,
Oh,
the
absolutely.
sooner the better.
Yes, yeah,
Keep it while it's being talked about.
yes.
One other thing that, and you may have already had these conversations with our colleagues in other counties, the regional jail project that Queen Anne's, Caroline, and Kent are jointly working for.
You want to talk about it? We met with Secretary Grady, just to mention that.
Well,
No,
Go ahead.
Senator.
anyhow, I think we've made pretty good progress so far at this point, but I would hope that we could maybe find some financial assistance there with that project as well, because it's going to benefit all three counties drastically. Our small county, it really doesn't make sense to continue to operate a local detention center when you don't have the population. It costs the same amount of money to take 3 or 4 children on a school bus as it does if the bus is full. Well, the same way with our detention center here in Kent County. And just the medical that we're spending alone is $1 million. And there's a way that by combining and joining together all three counties, there's a way for each one of our counties to save some money.
So about a month and a half ago, we all had a meeting with the budget secretary and went over the priorities in the District 36. And that was one of the ones that we discussed and brought up. And, I think she was a little surprised to hear that this was a joint effort amongst multiple counties and that we are looking for ways that if we can share, resources or services amongst whether it be two or three different counties, that was looked at pretty favorably. So, it's on their radar screen. It's listed as one of our priorities. Again, different type of budgeting. It's not LBI money or things like that, but this is really, what's in the governor's budget as well. But at the same time, from, the priorities that we've set and the recognition that, this is a much better solution than each county handling this their own way, I think was favorable to them.
And I think it's a trend setter, basically, because there's no other regional facility in the state as far as I know. And Virginia has been doing this for a while now. So I think that especially in the rural communities,
What grabbed her attention is we told her we're going to shut down 3 detention centers. And I will tell you that the Legislative Black Caucus, especially in Annapolis, who they work for many years for criminal justice reform. And then when we mentioned that our populations are down mainly because of criminal justice reform and juvenile justice reform, that got her attention. And I think that will get Annapolis's attention, that because of legislation that they passed, which has our populations almost in half of what it was 15 years ago. That we're going to start shutting these things down. Let me tell you something, that'll resonate. Like, that's a message that these guys will be completely on board with.
Years ago, it wasn't unusual for us to have 70-plus inmates in our little detention center. Now we're lucky if we have 31, 2, something like that. And we've got that many employees out there.
Yeah, it's just not cost efficient.
Anything else?
just keep your ear to the ground on it. I appreciate it.
Sure will. Hopeful on that one, too.
I wanted to say one thing before we close. My chief of staff has been with me 14 years, and Steve's chief of staff, Eric, has been with him 14 years. They're here with us tonight to have you all meet each other and so you know who you're talking to when you.
So there's not a lot of turnover in their office, is there?
Joanne Smith.
I don't know how, but
Chief of staff, and Erica Howard is Steve
You
Hershey.
can tell by looking at them that they're very capable.
They're extremely capable.
Working
yes.
with these guys, I'm surprised they're not more stressed looking at me.
But,
Well, thank you both for joining us as well.
they do all the hard stuff.
Yeah, and my staff's been here for 11 years. She's been with me since the first day, too. That's amazing. I didn't think
That is
about it.
amazing.
And I've been through like 6 of them.
Yeah, we're not
That's
talking
true.
about.
Don't marinate the young people out of college.
Don't say
They find
anything
bigger and
about
better
Jeff's
things to do.
But you still have us, Jeff.
Jeff goes through one a year.
Well, thank you all for what you do. Thank you. For our citizens and for your constituents, we do appreciate what you do, and we know it's not easy. But I've seen you guys in action over there. You're all fighters, and you're fighting for the right thing. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that, and thanks, and I know it's not easy, we've been over there a few times, and I don't know how you guys sleep at night, but I'm sure it's not easy some days, but we appreciate it, and anything that we can do personally, and that I can do to help, let us know. And, we're looking forward to doing that middle school, submitting that middle school bill again. And
There's some other options too. I'm not ready to.
No, I understand. That's good. That's good. I mean, I know it's a little ways away, but I was going to ask if there was anything that we could do differently or more. I know our lobbyist, who we absolutely love, helped us out with that. And so just keep us informed, because it's pretty, obviously, it's pretty important to everybody. So,
Thank you. Great.
And I do believe we have one member of a municipality board here with us, so I'm not sure if Mayor Cook has anything to speak with the delegation or the commissioners about.
Mayor Cook is the Rockall mayor.
It's good to see you all. Nothing specific. I do want to give a shout out to Delegate Jacobs for his enabling legislation we spoke about on Saturday regarding those vehicles. That is a big step. We spoke about that on one scale. He was able to carry that through to the end, so thanks for that. And I do want to thank the commissioners for your contribution to our new transportation program down at Rockall. We've been struggling on that for a number of years, and so the contribution really helped out. We've seen a positive response from the community, so thank you very much.
Great, you will. Thank you.
I would like to ask one question, and because you guys are on the other side of the bay a lot more than I am, the infrastructure to support electric vehicles, I don't think it's in place, is it?
It's not there.
Not even close.
What's out there is
That's why,
failing.
that's why.
I'm
the-
sorry?
What is out there is failing. You know, you see
That's what I
all these
understand
charging
from reading,
stations,
yeah.
so many are in disrepair that the utilities can't keep up with them.
That's one of the reasons that the buses never got switched over, because the infrastructure was virtually impossible. It was gonna cost them a fortune. And it wasn't, it was, I mean, the cost of the bus is one thing, but the infrastructure to prepare for it with the chargers and whatnot didn't exist, and it was gonna be extremely expensive. So, you know, I mean, I think eventually we're gonna get into the more EV use in the future, but there's just too much too fast without,
It's too soon.
without a good infrastructure. I mean, listen, there's a lot of poultry houses that want to put solar on top and don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the grid that can support it.
All these trusses won't.
So, you know, that's certainly a better use than taking out productive farmland if you can put a fair amount of solar on, you know, chicken houses, things of that nature. But they're in so many remote locations that you just don't have the grid, and there's no effort really to put it there. So it's, until that grid is dealt with, you know, it's gonna be an uphill battle. I mean, they want it, but you know, you gotta have all parts to make it work.
You know, you just wonder if you were all electric and like in Florida right now with this hurricane coming and the flood waters and the water and electric, we all know doesn't work well together. And it's just so many problems out there that nobody ever, they didn't give it a thought. That's raising its head now and everybody's seeing it. But Jeff, do you have a question?
And right now, they're running out of gasoline.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
Yeah, you guys had mentioned solar, and this really dominated the conversation we had at Queen Anne's County. And it was talked about a little bit up in Cecil. I don't know, Councilman Miller's been taking the lead up there. And next week in Carolina, I know it's going to dominate the conversation there is utility scale solar. That's a big challenge that I think that as far as our communities go and the Delmarva, well, at least the Eastern Shore counties on Delmarva, we're going to have to, I think we're going to have to take a position on this one way or the other. And it's a tough one because, you know, on one side you have property rights, you have, you know, these solar developers coming in and giving sometimes 3 to 5, you know, $5,000 more per acre than what our farmers are getting, you know, for their ag leases. And these guys, for at least the last decade, have already come in and signed leases, conditioner that, and also, they've also been selling these properties as well. So, there's two issues. One, as you guys know, ag is the #1 industry in the whole state of Maryland, not just the Eastern Shore. And so we're concerned that if you take, you know, 100,000 acres out of production, then they're going to have to, whatever that yield is, they're going to have to bring that in by rail car. And we're already bringing in corn by rail car to help sustain the poultry industry. It's a fully integrated industry, meaning there's 3 stools. You got the you know, the Purdue's and the Mount Airs, the integrators, you have the grain producers, and you also have the growers. So without any one of those 3, if any of those are swiped out, then the industry falls. We're going to lose our entire industry potentially. Absolutely. We don't know from the industry itself, like at what point is that break-even point where if they keep bringing in these rail cars, where it's going to be more cost-effective for them to just shut down and go west where they're actually producing these grains. They haven't actually said that yet. But it's a real threat. It's a real threat to our future, and it's here and now because of a bill that we passed a couple years ago. You guys have no say in the location. You have no say in the quantity, where they're located, setbacks. You have no say in anything. The state's basically preempted your control in that. So that's the other issue. This is like the 3rd time in the last decade that the state has preempted your authority on things. One is this. The other one was, remember tier mapping, Plan Maryland? That was another one where they preempted your authority. The cannabis, they preempted your authority on that, mostly affects the towns, though. And then now this. So at what point are we going to stop and say, you know what, we're going to create these laws and we're going to enforce these laws? Whether the state will recognize these laws or not. Are we there yet? I don't know. But it's a conversation I think that we have to start having. Because this is a real threat. It's a real threat to our #1 industry, and it's also a real threat to you guys. At what point, too, why even have you? Why have our planning commissions? Why have our liquor boards? Why have all these volunteer boards if the state's just going to tell you what to do anyway at the end of the day?
You're exactly
So-
right.
And they just totally ignore it.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes. So these are like, honestly, what I would very like, we're going to have an Eastern Shore delegation meeting, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We're going to have all the regulators come in, so that way we all know exactly what we're talking about. But I would do the same thing. I would have all your farm bureaus come together. Like, what is our position on this? Where are we going to move forward in the future? I would not use Mako because they punted on this issue. Recently, they punted. They have their own bill, and in that bill, it includes preemption. And I don't understand that. And like we talked to the chair a few hours ago, and we're like, listen, man, you have two options when you testify on a bill. You can either oppose it, or you can support it with amendments. And if there's any preemption whatsoever in any bill from either Mako or MML, honestly, I would oppose any bill. I would die on that sword because local control should be your number one issue. It should be Mako's number one issue, and it's not, clearly. They lost that battle. They support things with amendments, and those amendments are to take out preemption, but oppose those bills. Oppose them outright because of that one issue, and that'll send a strong message. But honestly, I would just circumvent Mako altogether on this. I would have all of our Eastern Shore counties come together and state a position. And honestly, I would share best management practice. Like, what do you guys have? The Cecil County, or Talbot County, they have, you can't put solar panels in the critical area. Caroline County has their set of rules. I think up in Cecil County, what did he do? Soil, was it A-type soil?
A soil.
You can't on good quality, high yield soil, you can't put, but those things don't matter, and they should. So that would be the second thing that I do, is like, what kind of zoning laws do you guys have in place that are good ideas? And honestly, I would have every county on the shore do exactly the same thing. And then also and I met with Holly Richard on Sunday, and I asked her where the industry is on this, and they have not taken a position, surprisingly, and it's their industry that's at risk, surprisingly. So, they need to take, honestly, they need to take a strong position, I think, and they also have to let us know at what point is that break-even point where literally they can't earn a profit by bringing all those grain on rail cars, so.
That's a good point, Jeff. I'm glad you guys brought that up. I was going to bring that up, but thank you for bringing that up. And I think that it's worth noting again that the Eastern Shore of Maryland is corn deficient to feed the poultry. Most people don't know that, don't realize that, but we rail car in, and like you said, there's got to be a break-even point there somewhere. Because we are on the East Coast, logistically that certainly helps that break-even point. But at some point in time, they'll rail car them back, I guess. I mean,
Is that because the pigs are eating it all?
yeah. Well, the pigs are fat and happy too. Yes. But thanks for bringing that up, and that's a good idea. I would certainly echo those comments about the Eastern Shore. I mean, it'd be nice to do something as a whole to try to get ahead of this a little bit, because it's if we lose the poultry industry on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, we've lost the Eastern Shore of Maryland.
The whole state's gonna suffer.
Yeah.
Not just the Eastern Shore.
Yeah.
Anything else, gentlemen? Well, listen, anything from you all? Covered it all.
Good.
Well,
Do you
listen,
have any legislative requests? Or are we having a meeting about that later?
This was to be our meeting, but we do not have any at this time.
At this time?
but
You know how to reach
we
us.
may, and
Okay.
I
You
know, I
reserve
think
the
we'll
right to
have
call
one or
us
two.
Right,
We need a bill.
exactly.
Okay, we got you.
And we know your priority is that school, and then we're full steam ahead as a team. We're full steam ahead on making sure that we do everything we can.
And like I think Albert asked, if something comes to mind that we could do that you think that we weren't doing, or we could do better, or somebody else to talk to, you let us know.
Well, that hearing couldn't have gotten any better, so we need to have the exact same panel saying exactly the same thing.
I thought, I'll tell you, I come back here and said you did a great job.
Everybody did a great job.
You-
Everybody did, yeah.
It was a good hearing, so maybe we can build on that. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank y'all. All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, ladies.
You guys aren't done.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, help yourself. I'm gonna ask James.
That's what it was. I didn't bring up Curly.
Good night.
Take care. Good seeing you, buddy.
Mayor Cook, did you have anything else you wanted to?
I said all I wanted to say.
All right.
So I want to pop in, I'm glad I made it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll give John time. Wait for John to get back. He stepped out for a minute.
So while he's out, this is just a public service announcement, is our work session for October 29th for LBI requests has been canceled since we didn't receive any LBIs, the legislative bond initiatives.
Okay, well, we have some consent items we have to approve. We have a regular session minutes dated October the 1st, 2024. We have our liquor minutes dated October the 1st, 2024, and we have Dan Mattson, Director of Public Works, County Roads Division, FY 2025, State Aid Surface Treatment Roads List. Dan, I got one little question. I saw your list.
Yes, sir.
Could we put Virginia and Ohio on that top of that list?
Yes,
And if they don't work out, we'll take them off.
not a problem.
That's the two roads in
Down
Topchester. So with that, I'll entertain, if we have no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve all three consent items as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. And we have two special Class C licenses, one from Chestertown Rotary Club for a beer and wine dated October the 26th, 2024. And we have Betterton Still Pond Lions Club Beer and Wine dated November the 9th, 2024. These are in need of a public hearing because they deal with alcohol. Tonight we'll allow tonight to be our public hearing. Anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against either one of these issues, feel free to do so at this time. There being none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the special Class C per diem liquor license application for the Chestertown Rotary Club. And
Okay, so, been a
I'll make
motion,
a motion on the other one.
Second.
and so a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
And secondly, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the special Class C per diem liquor license application for the Betterton Still Pine Lions Club.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we have Public Works Director Dan Mattson as Director of Public Works, here to talk about the courthouse remediation approval. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, thank you.
Dan, I looked at this report, 40 pages.
Yes,
And it was, can you just summarize
sure.
exactly what they identified?
Sure, so just for clarity, the report you're referring to is the air quality testing report from the courthouse. There's a lot of language in that report because there are no state or federal guidelines or thresholds for these things. It's very person to person. Some people are very sensitive, some people are not. The punchline of the report is that the entire courthouse right now, everywhere tested, was well below the mold content of the outdoor air, fresh air. There were some rooms flagged, I would say there's several rooms flagged as either slightly elevated levels or elevated. The great majority of those that were flagged with those designations are all within the flood areas that we're hoping to remediate, the basement and one of the first floor bathrooms, which we intend to have fully remediated and ideally under the insurance claim associated with that event. There were a couple other rooms throughout the building that had slightly elevated designations, and those dealt with, or the solution to fix those is pretty straightforward cleaning of the wall air conditioner units in the building. So separate from the mold remediation and repairs, we are scoping out and intend to proceed with that cleaning as well for other areas in the courthouse.
So I noticed when I looked at the report, and again, I was scrolling through it, looking at it, the humidity level in a lot of the areas throughout the building, whether it be in the basement, first floor, second floor, there are pretty high levels of humidity, which, from what I read, it should be around 60.
Yes.
Is there going to be something that's going to address the humidity in the building?
Yes, and specifically for the basement courtroom within that building, I believe in that report there was a recommendation that if it were to continue in regular operation, we should invest in a permanent dehumidifier for the area industrial. So we're getting those items for potential purchase scoped out as well from some different vendors. Some of it deals with the age of the building, the temperature and humidity outside of the day. Yeah.
On the Eastern Shore of Maryland.
Yes, yes, sir.
I mean, look, it's this, after reading, perusing through that report, I'm not going to say I read it cover to cover, but, we're on the Eastern Shore, we're in Kent County, Maryland. These issues are not uncommon to any particularly building that was built, 50, 75 years ago, 100 years ago. I mean, but even in new homes today, it's we all have, some issues because of the climate that we live in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So
yes,
I thought it was really, actually, I was surprised. I was very pleasantly surprised. It's pretty daggone good, really.
That was my overall impression as well. And it's worth noting, for the record, that areas where mold was encountered or spores were confirmed in the air, they were the most common type of spores, nothing that presented immediate significant health risk. It was what we would have expected. There was no toxic black mold identified anywhere in that report, so that was reassuring as well. The specific item tonight relates to that repair and remediation effort. We have a proposal from PBI related to, again, not just mold remediation, but also repair of the water damaged facilities. That report was reviewed by the insurance adjuster, and we are expecting hopefully confirmation tomorrow that the insurance company will fully cover it, less the $5,000 deduction. As the total remediation effort is over $25,000, it requires commissioner's signature unless otherwise delegated to approve. In the interest of expediting approval of that, we're proposing that signature authority for this proposal be delegated to the county administrator, so that once we have the green light, the clearance and approval from the insurance company, we could then immediately sign the proposal and get PBI to work on it.
When I was looking at the report, it talked about a leak in the roof, and they said they didn't see any wet areas from a previous leak, I guess.
Yes.
They also talked about some rotten windows. Is that something that's included in this, or is that something that will be, that's probably not part of the insurance?
I do not believe so. Yeah, I don't remember seeing any windows.
I don't think that it is. Typically, Sheriff, when the insurance company bid something, it's for the affected area.
Yes. However, moving forward with our building maintenance team, we'll be evaluating all of the items in that report and making corrections where we can to ensure.
I think there were two windows, and I don't know which ones they were. But like Albert said, part of that building was built back in the 1800s. The other part, I think, was built in the 50s or 60s.
Right.
So it's kind of like our roads. You gotta maintain it. It's not just gonna cost you more money.
Yes.
So, any other questions?
No, sir.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to grant the county administrator approval authority for a proposal prepared by PBI, commercial related to remediation and repair work at the Kent County Courthouse.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Should we just put in there, provided that the insurance company accepts this as well? Just because they haven't done
That's
that yet?
fine, you could say pending
Pending
insurance.
approval by the insurance company, we're gonna be on the hook for the $5,000.
Correct,
Right.
yes. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I see you got the trees cut down.
Yes, sir. I was going to provide a brief update on that project. We are finalizing
I was gonna say, when are we gonna stick a shovel in the ground?
Yep, we are finalizing the design plans over the next day or two. I expect them to be submitted to various review agencies, SHA, the town of Chestertown, Kent Soil Water Conservation District. Those submissions will happen this week. We've been in contact with the reviewers, so they do know they're coming. They understand the county's urgency. And we met on site today to coordinate the specifics of the site work that's going to be done by county roads versus what is in the bid package. So we're confident in that. I do fully expect before the end of the month we'll be starting. The key is the Conservation District's approval of the soil erosion plan and issuance from the town of Chestertown of the grading permit. So if not the end of this week, early next, I expect to be reaching out with you, the commissioners, to confirm a date for a groundbreaking ceremony.
Very good. And to follow up on that, there's another groundbreaking that's in the process of being worked on at the senior housing facility in Millington. Construction should start there 1st of November. And they're putting together a groundbreaking or ribbon cutting or whatever they want to call it, groundbreaking, I guess. And I think the town's working on that, so we'll all get invited to be a part of that when it takes place. But the actual construction, I think, is supposed to start the 1st of November.
Okay.
Bramble's doing a lot of that work.
Good.
So I think the 1st of November is when MDE
Yes.
is visiting.
Is that when they visit us?
That is the same date.
And who is coming, just the secretary?
And 6 of the senior staff from MDE.
Good.
I also noticed at Parks and Rec, the courts out there are being, worked on.
They're working hard out there.
Yeah.
After 3 of the driest months
Yeah.
I can remember,
Yeah, ever.
we
Yeah.
put a shovel in the ground there and
Yeah.
got hit with some serious rain. But it's appreciated elsewhere in the county, I'm sure. But yes, I believe that they are just waiting on shipment of the sand to complete that project.
It looked good.
Yeah, County Roads has been assisting them as we've previously
Done a good
discussed.
job.
Yep.
Very good. And I tell you, I've been out there last 2 or 3 Saturdays, granddaughter playing soccer, but out there, but the park looks really good.
Yeah, it's something to be proud of. They do a good job.
Nicely kept.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
And I've said it all the time, but even the community center, when you walk in it looks like it's brand new. I mean, it's very, very well kept. So, good job there. All right, anything else? If not, it's time for public comment or media review. Mike, you're the only public we got.
Am I?
Yeah.
What happened, everybody?
They thought you were gonna talk.
You know,
Then, I guess we,
motion to adjourn.
there you go.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Bill, do we have a permit yet?